Everybody, welcome back to REI Launchpad. We are today going to be talking a little bit about financing. Appreciate everybody kind of checking out the video from last week. We've had some good questions and some people interested in saying, okay, now I found a property, got some ideas about that. How do I buy the property? How do I get funding to be able to remodel the property? What does that look like? And what are my options? And of course, that just varies on so many different things on if you're doing a buy and hold, if you're doing a flip, on your credit, if you have a W-2, if you have lots of money, if you have no money. And thankfully, there are uh, a thousand ways to get funding for a deal. Of course, and if you find a deal, it's a good deal, you can absolutely find money. That is not a problem. There's lots of ways to do it. So we're going to talk about some of those today. Some of the ways that Chad and Gabe and I have had a lot of success. And Chad, I know one thing that you have had a lot of success with is utilizing just your regular job, your W-2 job, to get traditional loans. Of course, you've done pretty much anything and everything out there. But what would that look like for somebody who's maybe getting started or expanding and they've got a regular job, they're just wanting to start building their portfolio? How does somebody go about utilizing their regular job to get a loan?
Yeah, so I'd say that's where most people are coming from, right? I mean, they're coming to real estate investing with a full-time job, and their dream is that I'm going to be able to retire from this job, stop going to this 9 to 5, and I want to be a full-time investor,
Mhm.
right? But don't rush out of your job so fast because that W-2 is valuable when it comes to financing. Right. So that allows you to go to your traditional mortgage lender and get a conventional mortgage, right? So that's a Fannie Freddie type of a loan. Those are your best terms. You won't find a loan with better terms than that. However, you're limited in what you can do by debt to income ratio, which is the one metric that they look at when they determine whether or not they want to give you that loan. With every investment property that you buy, your income goes up, but so does your debt. But if you're buying it right, your income goes up at a more rapid pace than your debt. So it outpaces that debt to income ratio limitation. So as long as you're not out living a lavish lifestyle, and that's a whole different conversation and one that I don't propose to anyone, right? Uh, Ultimately, if you're wanting to get out of your day job and you're wanting to retire, don't go out and buy a $600 a month car. Don't go out, pay your mortgage off, make lifestyle decisions that put you in a position where lenders want to give you money and where you can invest your dollars forward rather than paying for, shiny cars and boats and big RVs, right? So it's a lifestyle choice as much as anything. But that conventional mortgage will allow you to get allow you to get the best terms that you can in the lending industry. Um, the the one thing that there is about it is once you start seeing success, there is a limit to the number that Freddie, Fannie, the for those federal guidelines will allow you to have. That number sometimes changes, and right now I believe it's 10. So you can only have 10 mortgages out on any properties. And I don't really know that because I'm not really in that area of financing deals anymore because I don't have a W-2. But for many, many years I did. And I honestly miss being able to go back and do that, right? Because those loans were dirt cheap compared to the loans I'm getting today. And the rates were the very best because I had a good credit score, my debt to income was low. And so I would get the absolute best rates available.
Mhm.
So that is the benefit of getting W-2 or getting conventional mortgages with W-2, and that's the benefit of having that full-time job, right? So again, don't
Right.
rush out of that job. It is more valuable than you know in real estate investment. Another area would be cash, right? So cash might be the most obvious. A cash buyer has leverage, as they say, cash is king, and that's that's true as it ever has been, right? When you're making a cash offer on a house, people notice that, right? They say, well, there's not going to be as many complications, so you actually have a little bit more leverage to negotiate. The cash is the absolute cheapest way that you can finance a property, or not finance a property, the absolute cheapest way that you can buy a property because you don't have closing costs, you don't have these lender costs and fees. Of course, you're still, paying administrative fees to title companies and searches and deeds and all of that, but you're reducing your expenses significantly. Of course, the biggest one being interest, but cash is very limited, right? So once you buy a deal, you may or may not be out of cash. Maybe you can buy two deals, but then you're gonna reach the end of that cash at some point, and you're gonna be like, well, how can I replenish my cash? Well, you got to go out and finance those properties that you paid cash for, right? So now you're going to a lender, getting your cash back out of those properties, and then going to go rinse and repeat.
Yeah, that's a strategy that a lot of investors will refer to as the Burr method. So if nobody's ever heard of that before, that is you buy a property, you rehab the property, you rent out the property, and then you refinance the property, and then you repeat. So the Burr method is a way that you can keep recycling the same amount of money into new properties, and hopefully by the time you refinance, you're able to get all the money you put into that property, or most all of that money, and then move it in the next property, and then you do it again, and then you do it again, and you do it again. And it's a very safe, easy way. I don't necessarily would say easy, but it's a very, very good strategy to be able to afford growing your portfolio with having a bunch of money tied up into one property for many, many years, and not being able to grow. Chad, I did one question I wanted to ask you on that too. So let's say somebody's working a W-2 job. Um, are they going to need a down payment if they're going to get a loan for a flip? So, it's one thing if you're buying your personal house, right? Most people, if you're going to buy your first home, you're going to get a loan, you're going to put down 3.5% or 5%. What does it look like if somebody's going to use a regular bank and use their regular income, their W-2 job, to get a loan on a rental property or flip property? Like, what are some hiccups to that? What are their requirements for a down payment? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's fixed, right? So you can't go out and get an FHA loan. If you were buying a primary residence, you could get a 3.5% down loan. Uh, but you're not going to be able to do that with an investment property. So you're getting a conventional mortgage, which is 20% down. And that's fixed. When, you'll talk about hard money, and sometimes it varies in hard money what percentage you have to put down. But when you go and get a conventional mortgage, you can guarantee that you're going to put down 20%. Now, with that said, you can't go out and get a conventional mortgage for a flip, right? Because a flip is going to be a short-term project. If you're lucky, you're going to be in and out of that flip in, I would say, 6 months minimum. Some you can do it faster, but 6 months minimum from the time you sign to the time you sign to close. But many times it's, 8 to 9 months, but we'll call it under a year in general. Lender frowns upon those. If you go out and tell them that this is a long-term hold for me, this type of a lender, they don't want you paying off that loan. And in fact, if you come back and pay off that loan in a year, they're unlikely to give you another loan in the future. So, uh, yeah, buying a conventional mortgage for a flip probably isn't the best idea. Um, or you'll be finding a new lender every time you do it. But yeah,
Yeah.
you can guarantee that you'll pay 20% down when you do it. But the Burr method, like you said, right? I mean, they've you recently in the last 10 years have coined that BRRR acronym, and it's become, very popular. But the post I put on the group earlier this week, that was a house I bought back in 2006. I bird that house, right? It's something that people have been using for years, and it's become really popular lately because people are talking about it, right? They're
Right.
talking about it year after year after year because it's something that's fixed in the real estate investment industry. It is a powerful, powerful tool. I can take $100,000, I can go buy a property, I can renovate it, and then I can go and get a loan, and I can get that money back, and I don't have to leave it there in that investment. It's infinite returns at that point, right? Um, these days, I'm finding it's really difficult to get a full burr, right? To get 100% of my money back. Things are changing a little bit in that, but if I can leave five to $10,000 in a project, like let's say I've got 180, $200,000 into a project, if I can get everything back, but 10 grand, I'm thrilled at this point.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And that is still a successful burr.
Mhm.
Uh, even though you didn't get it all back, you are it's the returns are still they're infinite at that point.
Yeah. So, so basically, what you're saying is, and I would agree with this too, is that a regular bank, you go to Chase Bank, you go to, your local bank. Not to say that you could not get a loan for a flip, but it would be challenging. You'd have to find just the right small local bank who might be interested in you. You could present such a great deal to them that they're like, yes, we can do this for you. But that's going to be very difficult to find. Not impossible, but it's not your probably not your best route to go. However, for a rental, if you are purchasing a property that's already in good shape, that is just about ready to go, um, that a regular bank is going to be good. That's going to be your best option doing a traditional loan where you're putting 20% down. Um, so going back though to a traditional bank, and we'll kind of get into that if you're going to Burr, like quick numbers on that might be if you use a non-conventional way to buy a house that's in really bad shape, right? So your goal is you're finding something that's distressed. You'll get a private loan or a hard money loan, or cash or something like that to buy it. Let's say it was $100,000 purchase price. You'd put $50,000 of rehab into it to bring it up to a much higher quality. And then let's say it's worth $200,000. So you only have $150,000 into it. It's worth 200. At that point, then you could go to your local bank and say, hey, you know, I have this property. It's been completely rehabbed. I've got a really good tenant in there. Here's the lease. This is what they're paying every month. And they'll be able to do what's called a cash out refinance and say, okay, yes, it's worth 200. We can loan up to 80% of that value. So that's going to be $160,000. So then at that point, they will give you a $160,000 loan. So in theory, you would get your $100,000 purchase price back. You would get your $50,000 of remodeling back and possibly even put some money in your pocket. Sometimes that happens. And then you have no more of your own personal money left in that property. You have a $160,000 loan. You've gotten all your money back. You have $40,000 of equity because it's worth 200, and then you can take that money and boom, move it right into the next property. So that's the rough numbers on that type of project. But yeah, that's where, like I said, the local bank would come into play after you fixed it up and rented it. Then go back to your local bank and say, hey, here's what I got. Let's do a cash out refinance so you can pull all of your money back out.
There's a couple of other options that I used as a W-2 employee, and anyone can use them. Of course, you don't have to have a W-2, but you pretty much would have had to have had a W-2 at one point to have a 401k. And a 401k allows you to take a loan against that, and you're paying yourself interest. So some of the first properties that I bought, I took a loan against my 401k, paid myself probably 7 or 8% interest, and then over time, and that allowed me to lock that property down, which is really the most important part. You got to do whatever you can, be creative in whatever ways you can just to get ownership or management of that property, and then you can go out and get traditional financing, refinance, do a lot of different things like a cash out refi.
Mhm.
But I think probably the most powerful tool, aside from cash, which is the absolute cheapest way to do it, but it has limitations, as we've heard. The most powerful, I think, and it has been in my career, is a HELOC. It's a home equity line of credit. So I don't have a mortgage on my primary residence. So I've got all this equity just sitting there, right? So I have this asset that I'm going to use. I'm going to use the equity out of that, and I'm going to use that to go buy properties. So I have a line of credit. There's a couple of different uh, products like this that you can buy. One is it's a fixed term. It has a fixed amount to it, but I particularly like the home equity line of credit. So that allows me to take up to $250,000 against my primary residence at a typically a lower rate. The introductory rates are usually phenomenal. I'm usually coming in, depending on, of course, the rate environment that's happening at the time. But I've locked them down as low as 2.5 to 4% for the first couple of years, and then they jump up to prime plus one type of a situation. But even if you're prime plus one, that's pretty cheap for what you're going to do with it. So now I've got this $250,000 line of credit, and I can go do whatever I want with it, right? I can go buy that new fancy car, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go buy a cash flow producing asset, right?
Right.
So I'll go buy something at a sheriff's sale, for instance, that because it acts like cash, right? So we talked about in a previous video, a sheriff's sale, you buy it and you have to have cash to do that. And you have to produce that cash within a few hours of the sale, sometimes even before the sale even starts. So all I have to do with the line of credit is go to the bank because I've gotten that from a local bank. I walk into the branch, I pull out a money order that comes directly out of that line of credit, and I take it to that sale. I'm also buying properties off the market with it. I can buy properties at any type of deal I can do with other types of financing. I can do with a HELOC, but I can do it much cheaper because I don't have closing costs. I have closing costs with title companies, but I don't have origination costs. I'm not paying a high interest rate like you would with a hard money lender. And it's a very flexible. The thing I like about the line of credit part of this, instead of just a home equity loan, is that if I'm not working on any properties at all, I have a zero payment on that line of credit, right?
Mhm.
So the payment I'm making is based on the amount of principal that I've pulled from that loan at any time. Sometimes I might have $100,000 out, so I'm paying on that 100,000. Sometimes I might have almost the whole 250 out. So if I have 200,000, I'm making a payment, interest only payment on that $200,000 loan. And then this is the tool that I use for burrs the most, right? So I'm going to go buy a property, I'm going to renovate the property, and then I'm going to go and I'm get traditional financing or DSCR type of a loan and repay that full amount that I've put on that line of credit.
Yeah. Yeah, you and I have both had a lot of success with that. I think it's a great resource too. You've used it to buy many properties. My wife and I have used it to buy land, to buy apartment complex, to buy, multiple rentals, to buy flips. It's been a phenomenal resource. One thing I did want to ask you, you mentioned that you do not have a mortgage on your home. Do you have to have your home paid off to get a line of credit on your home?
Good question. And the answer is no. If I have $100,000 mortgage against a $500,000 house, I have $400,000 in equity,
Mhm.
right? So I can exercise a portion of that equity. You can never go to 100%, right? So
Yeah.
if you have a $500,000 property, you owe 100 on it, so it leaves you with a $400,000 amount of equity. You'll never be able to go get a loan for that $400,000, right? Because that would stretch you out to the entire value of that house. And that would be considered as high risk from a bank or any type of a lender, right? So they look at LTV, which is loan to value. And all of the loans that we talk about today, they they are measuring the deal and only going to give you a certain LTV. And HELOC's no different. A HELOC's going to give you 80% LTV. You're allowed to have two home equity loans,
Hmm.
a maximum of two. One of them can be your primary residence, and one has to be a vacation home. So
Mm.
if you have a if you have two properties in Florida, I'm sorry, if you live in Indiana and you have both two properties in Indiana and you try to go to a local bank and say, well, one of them is my primary residence and one of them is my vacation home in the same town or close by or a vacation home in Indiana
Right.
in general, they're going to call BS on that because, well, you
Right.
don't have a vacation home in Indiana. But if you had an investment property in Florida or some other state, then you would be able to tell them, yeah, one of them is a vacation property, one of them is my primary residence. So you could actually get um, two lines of credit against two different properties. I've never been able to do that. I invest locally, although I'd be interested in investing out of state, but my my primary target is local properties. So I've not been able to exercise that option myself at this point.
If we're looking into, let's say it's a flip, or you want to try and do that Burr method, or maybe you just don't have good enough credit to be able to get maybe a loan through a regular bank. I know, Gabe, you've had some success doing private loan. What are some of the pros and cons of that? How does that work? Like, let's say you found a really good deal. You don't have a lot of money sitting in your own account. Maybe you don't have great credit or a great job to be able to qualify for a loan. How does a private loan work for somebody?
Yeah. I mean, when I started, I was 18, so I didn't have a W-2 job. I was in school. I didn't have, I didn't have thousands of dollars sitting in my account. So that was one of the only options that I had, or, partner with someone that did have it.
Yeah,
So I think private money is a great resource, a great tool. The caveat I will give to it is that money that we call private money, it comes from someone who is a private party that has cash available. So that could be a close family friend. It could be family. It could be someone in the industry that that has the money and they say, yeah, sure, I'll lend to you. Um, so when you're thinking about those people, I wouldn't say there's necessarily a higher risk, right? But definitely a little bit more on the line, right? If it's grandma's money, if it's your best friend's money, if it's whoever's money, you have to keep that in mind when you're doing this deal. Um, sometimes you might be really lucky and those private lenders want to not only they don't really want to invest in the deal, they want to invest in you. And that was certainly my case, right? They had the money, they wanted to invest in me as Gabe, not as, the property that I'm gonna flip and make this lump sum of money, right?
right.
So I think private money is a great tool, but if you need to keep that one caveat in mind. But getting into it, yeah, I mean, how do you find private money? I mean, think about the people in your life, whether that be friends, family members, coworkers, whatever it is, that probably has that money, and present them with the deal. Now, here's the thing: you need to do the legwork to make sure that you know the deal. You need to know your stuff. You need to know the numbers. Not, hey, I found an ugly house and I want to make it pretty and sell it, right? because very much so, when I was 18, I thought that was flipping, right? It's a lot different than HGTV, when we're talking about flips. But even for, a buy and hold, if you wanted to rent it out afterwards and just refinance, then, you only need that money up front to renovate it a little bit and refinance the property. But still, you need to know market rent. You need to know, how much am I gonna actually have to put into this property? We're not talking, paint and fixtures. We're talking, oh, hey, does a subfloor in the bathroom need to be ripped up? So I think the most important thing is when you get this private money, keep in mind who you borrowed it from. Keep in mind that they're most likely, if it's your first deal, they're most likely investing in you and not the deal. So it's your responsibility to go into that deal knowing your stuff, feeling confident in your numbers. Underestimate, oh, hey man, I think I'm gonna make 20 grand when, you come to the closing table. It'd be a pleasant surprise to under promise and make 40,000. So I think those things are certainly important to keep in mind. But yeah, private money is a great tool if you know who has the money and you feel comfortable enough to basically pitch them, hey, look, and like I said, since you have some leverage, since the people are investing in you, hey, I've never done this before. Um, but I'm ready. I've done the research. I know this property is going to cost X. I have a contractor who gave me a quote for this. I think all said and done, we're looking at this range. Even if we're at the lower end with closing costs and everything, we'll walk away with this. I mean, private money, you can find very, very low interest rates, or, I mean, again, if they're investing in you, depending on who it is, they might not want anything in return. So I do think it's a great tool for sure.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Gabe, when I go to a bank and I buy a loan, I've got to pay 1 to 2 points in origination fees and all these fees. So what are you paying to private lenders to close those loans? I mean,
Yeah.
when somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, Gabe, I'll invest $100,000," are you paying them $1,000 to $2,000 just to originate that loan?
I mean, yeah, I think it goes back to who is it, right? Who are you taking the money from? Who are you borrowing this money from? My private lender, I was not. My private lender was family, believed in me, and there was no fees, nothing attached, right? And it very well can be the same for you. You may have your parents who want to help you, your grandparents, your aunt, your uncle who truly believe in you, and they say, you know what, hey, just at the end of the day, I want you to make money. Give me, 2% back on my money, 1%, but whatever and you may be entitled or feel like you should give them a little bit more just for helping you, right? But yeah, I guess it just genuinely depends on who wants to help you with that.
Yeah, that's a good point. And you definitely want to, like I said, be responsible for whoever is taking that gamble, because uh if you need somebody's help, you want to deliver, you want to do well for them,
Right.
and because if it goes well, they'll invest with you again and again and again.
Well,
Um, I think another good thing with that is if you're starting off and that's a direction that you might go, you never know, to your point, who around you might even be that person who has capital, or maybe they have a large retirement account, or um, there's a lot of people out there who have disposable money available to invest, and are looking for things. People might be nervous about the stock market, or they may be
mm,
retiring. They may have inherited some funds, and they're looking for places, safe places to put their money and put their money to work. There's a lot more money out there than a lot of people realize, especially if you're starting off and you're thinking, man, I don't know anybody who has any resources. You might be surprised. Um, One way you can start to find that out, and you may not know right away, but is to start, I believe, taking ownership as an investor, saying, even if you don't know anything, start telling people, hey, I'm learning about real estate. Hey, I'm going to buy my first rental property this year. I'm going to buy my first flip this year. I'm getting started. and let people know, like, I'm getting educated. I've joined REI Launchpad. I'm going to meetups. I'm learning about how this works, right? You know, like you don't want to just blindly go out there and say, oh yeah, I'm going to buy 10 rental properties this year, right? Because
Right.
you're not likely to do that your first year if you've never done it before. Um, but start taking ownership, start learning and educating, and then letting people know that that's what you're doing, right? Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take those steps. And you never know who might come up to you and say, hey, you know what? If you find a good deal, Gabe, let me know. You know, I'll take a look at it with you, and you know, maybe I'll partner with you.
Right.
So that's a really good way. Just start putting it out there. You never know what opportunities will come up, or who are in your circle has some resources, right? Or knows somebody else who does. You know, there's many times I've gotten connections to something through somebody else. Maybe it wasn't in my direct circle, but somebody in my circle knew somebody, right? So put it out there. You never know, you know, who
Yeah.
around you can help.
And I think the last thing to add on that is whether you learn it here in REI Launchpad or Bigger Pockets, or you read a book or you talk to someone.
Mhm.
I remember when I started, I found this idea to kind of seem a little ludicrous and not understand it. But it's the idea of you hold a lot of value when you can find a good deal. Good
Yeah.
deals are the things that are hard to come by, right? So if you truly find a moneymaker, a diamond in the rough, um, what I have always heard and seen to be true now that I've actually done it is people want to give you that money. You know,
Mhm.
put aside grandma and mom for a second who might lend you money, you know, think of the people who are going to charge you, but they're willing to help you and bring that, you know, extra layer of
Yeah.
expertise. They want to help you if they know they're going to make something off of it, right? Hey, wow, you found a great property that needs flipped in a or B class area. We know it's going to sell. It's going to have a high, you know, return on investment. We want in on that, you know? So I think that is extremely important. Don't sell yourself short if you can find those deals, going back to sourcing the deals, right? If you can find those deals, certainly funding becomes a lot easier. So,
Yeah. I'll talk a little bit about hard money lenders, because they're another great resource, and might even be something that uses a combination with, uh, you know, both, you know, all everything that we've talked about. It's a great resource that my wife and I use for, I'd say, probably 90% of our projects. So what a hard money lender is they are a non-traditional lender. So your traditional lender, again, is your bank. You know, you go to your bank and you say, hey, I've got this house. They're traditional. They have lots of requirements on your credit score, on your income, on the property, on the condition of the property. Your traditional bank has a lot of hurdles that you have to get through, and it takes a while to get at all the ducks in a row to be able to purchase. So a hard money lender is a non-traditional lender who their entire business model is around investing and helping get loans on distressed houses, on it doesn't even have to be a distressed house, but on real estate for people who maybe do not have the best credit or do not have the most resources, and they can think outside the box. They understand that you're buying a property that needs work. That's what they do. And they do two things that is very helpful. They will typically they will look past somebody, or they will look past somebody's bad credit. And you got to have decent credit usually. Or they might even have a scale of, like, if you have low credit, you're going to pay a little bit more in interest and fees. You have medium credit, you'll pay a little less in interest and fees. And you have excellent credit, you'll pay, you know, even less. So some of them have a working scale depending on, and depending on your experience level. They also will provide a lot of times the loan, but also the funds for the remodel. Because sometimes it's challenging. You might be able to find a way to find a property and maybe get a private loan to purchase it. Then you're like, okay, well, how am I going to pay for materials and contractors? And I don't want to max out all my credit cards. And um, So they're a great resource that can allow you to not only get a loan, but then also a loan for the construction side of it. They have a lot less hurdles because they understand what you're doing as an investor, and they typically close quickly. A lot of times you can close them in 2 to 3 weeks, whereas with a regular bank, you might be looking at, 4 to 6. It is a really good option. Negatives to it is that they have high interest. So you're going to pay, whereas let's say a regular bank might be 8% for construct or a remodel, or a flip or a rental. Um, that would be your monthly interest payment would be around, an 8% interest rate. A hard money lender might be 12 or 13. So it's expensive. Plus, Chad was talking about points. What a point is 1% of whatever the loan amount. So if somebody says, "Oh, it'll cost 2 points to get this loan, to originate the loan," that means 2%. So if you were going to take a loan out from a lender for $100,000 and they say that's a 2-point origination fee, you're going to pay $2,000 just to get the loan, right? And that's common with whether it's your regular bank or hard money lenders. Just hard money lenders tend to be more. It's going to cost you a little bit more. But the pros to them is that it allows somebody who may not have a lot of resources or may have found a distressed property and doesn't have somebody that has a bunch of cash and doesn't have a W-2 job or a great credit score to get a regular, loan through a bank. Hard money lender will allow you to get that property and move forward. And even though it's a little bit expensive, one thing that I talk about all the time and has been important for us is it allows you to get the property, and I always look at it from my perspective of it, it is a little bit expensive, but they're part of the team, who allows us to be able to move forward on a property. It's no different to me than it is hiring a tile guy for the bathroom or buying materials from Lowe's. Like that hard money lender is a little bit expensive, and sometimes that can feel difficult to get past, but they allow you to get the property. And as long as the numbers all pencil out and there's still profit in the end, we have found them to be a great resource. My wife and I have great credit, but and we have cash, but we do not have a W-2 job. And so hard money lenders have been a fantastic resource for us, and have proven to be just a really, really great, resource. We're in Indiana. All three of us, Gabe and Chad and myself. There's a couple lenders that are local, and I'm not endorsing them or recommending them, but we have used Kiavi. There's MM Lending, not M and M. It's MM Lending. There's also Dominion Financial Services. Those are 3 companies that we've utilized. But if you just go on Google and you just search hard money lender Indiana or hard money lender Florida or hard money lender Georgia, wherever you're at, there are many, 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 lenders out there, and just check reviews on them, check to see, make sure you do your homework to make sure they're a good, reputable company. But also check around too. If you were to utilize a hard money lender, get a quote from a couple different ones because they're no different than any other business. Each one of them has their own options they offer, their own interest rates, their own requirements. So they're a really good thing. One other thing to keep in mind with the hard money lender is they're usually a short-term loan. So you're going to be looking at a loan that only is for 9 months or 12 months. So it's literally designed that for the purchase and the rehab to be done in a short window. And then you can usually pay a small fee to extend it if you need to. So that's something to keep in mind. It's typically a short-term loan to begin with if you're getting if you're going to be remodeling the project. Now, a lot of them also offer programs these days where you can do the purchase, the remodel, and then once you're done, you can roll into, if you wanted to keep it as a rental, you can roll into a long-term rental loan with them. So still non-traditional bank. So if you would struggle to get a loan through Chase or your local bank, you could then use a hard money lender to roll into a long-term loan. So it would allow somebody who maybe doesn't have the best credit or resources or would struggle with a traditional bank to still get a rental loan and keep that property. And a lot of them will still allow you to do a cash out refinance. So if you fix that property up to where you have a lot of value in there, a lot of equity, those hard money lenders a lot of times let you do a cash out refinance and turn it into a long-term loan. And then you have your money back and you can turn around and do it again. You can do that Burr method that we talked about before. So that's a great resource. Yeah, I highly recommend that as an option for people. If you find a property that needs some work, that's a great way to go. You will pay more, but they're very flexible with you on the property itself, and you and your resources and credit score. They're a great option to use.
I've got a question for you, Mike, about
Yeah, go ahead.
hard money.
Yeah.
And I've used hard money as well, and they're fantastic. And like you said, it allows you to take ownership of the property, and that is the biggest part of real estate. It's like, I want this under my control. I want as much good real estate as I can under my management. But will hard money lend to just anybody? Would somebody that has not done any real estate investing, because they are specific to real estate investors, if you've never done a deal before, are you gonna be able to go to a hard money lender and get money?
Yes. Not all of them will. Again, it is specific to they each have their own requirements, and rules and policies. However, a lot of them will allow a first time, no experienced person to invest because they are going to look a little bit at you, your credit score, your experience level, but they will do their own underwriting on the property. So they're going to ask you, say, hey, what's the address of the property? What's the purchase price? What are you projecting for the rehab? And then what are you projecting its after repair, its ARV, its after repair value will be? What can you sell it for? What will it be worth in the end? They're going to evaluate the property more than you, right? So now if you have no experience, most of them will charge you more fees and a higher interest rate, but they will take a gamble on somebody who's brand new if the property is worth it, right? That's what they're mostly going to evaluate. So it is a great resource for somebody who has little or no experience. But you may have to call a couple different lenders before you find one that will, but most of them understand that's why you're going to hard money lenders, because you're new. You don't necessarily have all the resources in the world, and they cater to that. So yes, they can be a very good option for somebody who has zero experience.
So one of the most powerful, yet not foolproof, but one of the most powerful ways that you can get properties underneath your management is to partner with an experienced investor, right? So for many years in investing, I was probably 20 to 25 years into it before I ever took on a partner. But all along the way, I desired to have a partner, right? You can do so much more. And early in my journey, I wished that I would have had someone. I had a mentor very early on when I was a teenager. That was the entire reason that I got into this. It was a mentor, but never a partner in the way that I'm talking about. When you go to a lender, as Mike was talking about, when you go to a lender, experience has a lot to do with the type of terms that you get. It also has a lot to do with your success rate, has a lot to do with your comfort level, and the efficiency in which you manage that project. And taking on that partner, there is a financial cost to that, as you're going to split the proceeds, but you're also splitting the labor. But also be careful that you're taking on somebody that brings value to the project. Somebody that, when somebody asks me if I'm going to partner, I'd say, hey, you need to bring one of a few things. You need to either bring a lot of experience, right? More than me, because I have a lot of experience myself. So I'm going to want to learn something from you. You need to bring a deal. You need to bring an enormous amount of legwork, right? So you're going to, so as to save me the work, or you got to bring money, right?
Right.
So if you don't bring in one of those things, I'm not going to partner with you. The deal probably is the most important part. And there might be some of you that are watching this right now that say, hey, I've got a deal, but man, I'm not feeling good about myself, and I'm not feeling good about how, my experience, and, you know, I'm just not comfortable in this. I can't visualize how it's going to work because I've never done it before. I don't know that I can go get financing. And, you just analyze it to death until you lose that deal. So I just want to stick this out there now that find somebody to partner with you. That could be somebody in this group. That could be Mike or Gabe or myself. We're open to partnerships. If you have a deal, don't let that thing die. Find a partner. You're better off taking 50% of something than 0% of nothing, right?
Mhm.
And if you get a partner that has a vast amount of experience, you will learn so much in that deal. The next one, you may just take off on your own. Or you might be like, you know what, that felt good. I liked that. That was successful. I liked the way they did it, but I feel like I maybe want to do it again with that person or someone else. And then I feel like maybe I'd be comfortable enough to do it on my own. So don't let fear get in your way of exercising that deal and seeing that deal that you have go to its full potential. Bring a partner on and get that thing done. Get some experience under your belt.
Yep. Well said. Well said. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a wonderful avenue to be able to, like you said, learn, grow, get off the ground, get started. And I've heard numerous times of people who were like, didn't have resources, but they had an opportunity. And so they partner with somebody, and maybe it was they found a deal and they were just going to manage the construction, or maybe they found a good rental and somebody brought the money and they said, hey, I'll manage the property, I will take care of the tenants, all that stuff. You can structure it so many different ways. You can structure the proceeds a lot of ways. There's no exact rhyme or way or reason on how you do it, and what it is. Maybe you have a bunch of money and you need somebody who has properties, or vice versa. So yeah, you're exactly right. That's a really, really good tool for somebody who is looking to get in, and having an experienced person come alongside you, uh, is just a great way to be able to get that experience and knowledge, and hopefully put a little bit of money in your pocket too. Well, those are some great resources. As always, Chad, myself, and Gabe are always ready and available. If you have any questions, you can reach out to any of us at any time. If you have a property that, it's something, you might just like a little bit of advice on evaluating. If it's a good deal, we'll do our best to help. If you have any specific questions about financing or hard money lenders or home equity line of credit or private lending, we are happy to be a resource. Again, our entire goal here at REI Launchpad is to see you succeed, see you grow your net worth, your passive income through real estate. If we can be of any help at any time, please just let us know. Thank you for joining us on this call. We're hoping it's a great resource for you, and we'll look forward to the next call. And thank you for joining.